I woke up that Father's Day morning the same way I'd woken up every day for the past 3 years, alone. The sunlight came through the curtains slow and soft, the way Eleanor used to like it. She'd always open them just enough to let the light kiss the room without burning it. But Eleanor was gone now, and the house felt colder for it. I sat up, rubbing the ache from my knees, and walked to the dresser. There, tucked beneath a stack of old letters, was the card I'd made the night before. Simple, a little rough around the edges, just like me. Inside, I'd written a few lines, nothing fancy, just words from a father who still believed his son remembered him. I picked up the framed photo next. It was Eleanor and me on our wedding day, both of us grinning like fools. I ran my thumb over the glass and whispered, "He's a good man, El. I know he is." But deep down, something gnawed at me, a quiet fear I didn't want to name, that maybe I didn't matter as much as I used to. I got dressed, pressed my collar, checked my reflection, and told myself today would be different. Today I'd be welcomed. Today I'd belong. I had no idea how wrong I was. The drive over felt longer than it should have. I kept rehearsing what I'd say. Kept imagining my son's smile when he saw me at the door. Maybe the grandkids would run up and hug my legs the way they used to. Maybe we'd sit around the table like we did before Eleanor passed, laughing over burnt toast and cold coffee. I pulled into the driveway and saw the decorations. Balloons tied to the mailbox. A banner across the porch that read, "Happy Father's Day," in big looping letters. My chest swelled. See? They remembered. I grabbed the card and the photo and walked up to the door. Knocked twice, waited. The door opened, and there she was, my daughter-in-law, Rebecca. Her smile was thin, polite, the kind you give a stranger selling something you don't want. "Oh, Harold?" "Hi." Not Dad, not even, "Hey, you made it." Just, "Harold." "Morning, Rebecca," I said, holding up the card. "Thought I'd stop by, Father's Day and all." She glanced over her shoulder, then back at me. "Right. We're actually just sitting down to brunch." "Perfect," I said, stepping forward. "I won't stay long." She didn't move. For a second, I thought maybe she hadn't heard me. But then she stepped aside, barely, and let me in. Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon rolls and bacon. The table was set beautifully. Cloth napkins, fancy plates, flowers in the center. My son sat at the head of the table, laughing at something one of the kids said. He looked up when I walked in. His smile faltered. "Dad," he said. Just that, nothing more. I looked at the table, counted the chairs, 5, all filled. There was no seat for me. I stood there, holding that card like an idiot, while everyone stared. The kids looked confused. My son looked uncomfortable. Rebecca looked satisfied. "Sorry, Harold," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "We decided this year we'd keep it small, just immediate family." The words hit me like a slap. Immediate family, I was his father. I raised him. I held him when he cried. I taught him to tie his shoes, to ride a bike, to be a man. And now I wasn't immediate. I looked at my son, waited for him to say something, to stand up, to tell her she was wrong. He didn't. He just looked down at his plate, jaw tight, fingers gripping his fork like it might save him. "Right," I said quietly. "Of course." I set the card on the side table, placed the photo next to it, and turned toward the door. "Harold, don't be like that," Rebecca called after me. "It's nothing personal." I stopped, looked back at her, and for the first time in my life, I saw my son's wife for what she really was. Cruel, calculated, cold. "Of course not," I said, and I left. The door closed behind me, and I heard laughter start up again before I even reached my car. I don't remember much of the drive back. My hands were on the wheel, but my mind was somewhere else, somewhere far away. Back when my son was small. Back when he'd run to me after school and tell me everything. Back when I mattered, Eleanor's voice echoed in my head. "You're a good father, Harold. He'll always need you." But she was wrong. I pulled into my driveway and sat there for a long time, staring at the house, at the empty porch, at the life I'd built that no longer felt like mine. Inside, I sat at the kitchen table and opened the photo album. Page after page of memories, birthday parties, holidays, graduations, all the moments I thought would bind us forever. I stopped on a picture of my son in his cap and gown. I was standing beside him, arm around his shoulders, both of us beaming. I whispered, "Where did I lose you?" The silence answered. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of my own invisibility. But somewhere in the dark, something shifted. The sadness hardened, became something else. Resolve. 3 days later, the letter came. I almost didn't open it. It was from an old friend, Colonel Davis, my former commanding officer. We hadn't spoken in years, but he'd heard about Eleanor, sent his condolences. And now this, Harold, we're holding a veterans ceremony next month at the Riverside Convention Center. You've been nominated for the Legacy Service Award. It would mean a lot if you'd attend. Let me know. So Davis, I read it twice. Then I looked at the location, Riverside Convention Center, the same place my son worked, the same place his company sponsored community events. And just like that, the plan came together. I didn't tell anyone, didn't call, didn't ask permission. I just started preparing. Over the next few weeks, I moved in silence. I pulled my old uniform out of the closet, brushed off the dust, and had it pressed. I polished my medals until they gleamed. I found my discharge papers, my commendations, my photographs from overseas. I wasn't doing this for revenge. Not exactly. I was doing it to remind him who I was, what I'd given, what I'd sacrificed. I reached out to a reporter I knew from the local paper. Told her about the ceremony. She said she'd cover it. I didn't mention my son. I didn't have to. Everything was falling into place. And the best part? They had no idea I was coming. A year passed. Father's Day came around again. This time, I didn't wait for an invitation. The veterans ceremony was scheduled for that Sunday morning. My son's company was listed as a sponsor. Rebecca had even posted about it online, bragging about their community involvement. I smiled when I saw that. She thought I'd disappear. Thought I'd fade into the background like some forgotten relic, but I wasn't going anywhere. I put on my uniform, pinned my medals, looked at myself in the mirror, and I saw the man I used to be, the man my son forgot. The convention center was packed. Rows of folding chairs filled with veterans, families, local officials, a stage up front with flags and a podium. Cameras everywhere. I slipped in through the side entrance, kept my head down. No one noticed me. Not yet. The ceremony began. Speeches about service, about sacrifice, about legacy. And then the announcer said, "We'd like to honor a very special veteran today, a man who served his country with distinction and raised a son who continues that legacy of service in our community." My son stood near the front, smiling politely. Rebecca beside him, preening for the cameras. "Please welcome Sergeant Harold Mitchell." The room erupted in applause. My son's smile vanished. Rebecca's face went white. I walked onto that stage in full uniform, medals catching the light, and I looked right at them. The cameras turned. The crowd stood, and for the first time in years, I felt seen. The speech I gave was short, simple, but every word mattered. I talked about duty, about family, about the difference between being present and being remembered. I didn't call out my son, didn't name Rebecca. I didn't have to. The video spread online within hours. Local news picked it up. People shared it with captions like, "This is what real family looks like," and "Respect your elders." 2 days later, my son showed up at my door. He looked older, tired, ashamed. "Dad, I'm sorry, I let him in. We sat and we talked." He cried. I didn't. I told him I forgave him. But I also told him forgiveness doesn't erase the hurt. Love isn't just words, I said. It's action. It's respect. It's showing up, he nodded. And for the first time in years, I saw my son again. That evening, I drove to Eleanor's grave. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber. I placed the medal beside her headstone and knelt down. I did it, Elle, I whispered. I stood up. For us, for him, for me. The wind rustled through the trees, and I swear I felt her there. Family isn't who claims you when it's easy. It's who stands beside you when it's hard. It's who remembers you, who honors you, who fights for you when the world forgets. I stood up, took one last look at her name carved in stone, and I walked away knowing I'd done right by her memory and by my own.